Consumer is always changing. He's constantly changing, evolving, transforming, and his need therefore is changing. So your product is constantly changing. Forget brand, your product is constantly changing. Okay? Now, oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, we have made our business, we have made our products, and we settle back and say, product ban gaya, now let's think about how to market it, how to distribute it, how to raise funding. I love that. Everybody wants to raise funding. Raise funding for the product. But how often do we stop and say, my customer is changing, therefore my product is constantly changing? When was the last time I revisited my product? Okay. I'm saying this whole notion of what business am I in? You know, in MBA we learned, Kotler said, ask yourself, what business am I in? This whole business in, what business am I in, can be changing. I mean, think mobile phones, for example. Initially they were in the communications business. Today this is not enough. Now they are in the entertainment business. So the very reason for existing that mobile phones had is no longer even a primary reason. You would not buy an iPhone to make a phone call. Okay? The consumer and his need is not static. So let's define consumer. I have defined the consumer as he who makes the tipping decision is the consumer. That's it. Nothing to do with eating my product, using my product, nothing. He who makes the tipping decision is the consumer. It may well have nothing to do with the actual product.
What do you mean by tipping decision?
Next slide. Let's look at what is this transaction. Okay. Every interaction with your consumer has to be a balanced transaction. The consumer is something that you want, money. You have something the consumer wants, the satisfaction of his need. Okay. Purchase happens when these two balance. Oftentimes, we are in the business of getting his money by giving him a product. We are not in the business of satisfying his need, for which he will give you the money. You see the sequence of effects? Okay. So, tipping example. And this is an actual example from our research. A husband and wife buy a refrigerator. They go through the feature list, they go to the shop, argue back and forth, all keeping the cost in mind, narrow down to 2 models, 2 brands. Finally, they choose the blue one because it matches the curtains. Okay. However daft this may sound, it happens far more often than you would believe. And this is part from our actual research. So, whoever took that final tipping decision is the consumer. Whoever decided that, nay, yaar, this is the one I want. In the mind, they may not even have verbalized that it goes with my customer. But whoever took that decision is your consumer. And I want us to start thinking about our product from this perspective. That in reality, all the business that you do, who is the real consumer? Yeah? And later on when Ashtin does his exercises, one of the exercises will be defining who your consumer is. The actual consumer is not always evident. Look at paints as a category. Traditionally, Asian Paints is a big client of ours for many, many years. Before we started working with them, Asian Paints believed that it is the man who makes the decision, woman only chooses the shades. Okay, very, very stereotypical. As a result, all their communication was aimed at males. On further probing, we realized that that is not true at all. The female is far more aware of the brands. The female is far more aware of the advertising, far more aware of the proposition, of the offers, etc. than the male can ever be. It is the female actually who chooses the brand for the paint. All men are nothing but wallets on legs. So that's what they do. Let's look at cement. Again, cement, classically, stereotypically a male domain. I mean, man will go to the shop and buy a cement bag. Woman doesn't go to the shop. But if the man comes back home having bought Ultratech, wife will say, man, didn't you see that ad for Ambuja? Didn't you see that the ad is Ambuja is the strongest? Immediately go and give it back. We need only Ambuja. Again, female. Now, if you don't think what I'm saying is right, look at all the current advertising for Asian Paints. It's all aimed at women. Look at advertising for cements. It's aimed at women. Medicine. Who buys medicine? Any ideas? Men buy medicine. Who buys men's shirts? Any married? How many married? So all the hands that went up know exactly who buys men's shirts. Now, what is important about all of this is that strong communications implications. So, if I'm in the shirts business, who will I talk to? Do I show a dude wearing this awesome shirt by which every female will fall for him? Or do I show the female who looks at the shirt and say, this will look good? And this is what I need to buy. Yeah? So, it has strong implications on communication.
So in the case
Washing machines?
So do you think JK Super Cement, where a girl in swimsuit comes and says which khas hai, is targeting the women?
Actually, but can I have an example on cement? You saying it's targeted women, for example?
Yeah. All the communication that was done which showed homes as different from houses. A house, physical structure, home, human being inside. All the communication that showed homes and the family living inside was all aimed at women. It had nothing to do with cement, it had nothing to do with anything.
But when we are talking about cement, I think this is arguable because it is more technical in nature when we are talking about cement.
Only men say that.
Over there, you know, if you feel that females dominate this aspect, it's very difficult to understand because if you look at a larger perspective and you go to rural areas, there I don't think men would listen to women when they are talking about technicalities of it. They would say, I believe this is stronger.
Are you married? Men don't run their lives. Women let them know, let them believe that they run their lives. So believe me, we've done research in rural areas, in small towns, across categories, across everything. Across everything you can think about.
We are talking about cement.
I'm talking about cement. I'm talking about Ambuja Cement. He's my largest client. As an individual capacity, I'm an advisor to the managing director. We've done research across every consumable category. The man goes and purchases it. The female tells him which brand to take. Huge difference.
Which segment is the bigger customer of, say consumer of cement? Say like a builder or the organized segment or the retail?
Separate discussion, nothing to do with brand. I'll answer that in the break. Separate discussion. Okay? So importantly, I'm saying we need to define the consumer from his or her perspective. What we do is we define the consumer from our perspective. Okay? We need to define the consumer from his or her perspective. Not from our product's perspective. I'm saying this is critically important. We have made this product, now we are going to define the consumer, is one look at it. Here is a consumer who has a need, I will make a product for him, is a completely different perspective. So, as entrepreneurs, we often ask the wrong question. We ask, I've got this great product, who will be my consumer? And I'm willing to bet that if you are honest, and I ask for a show of hands, half this room will have to put their hands up to say that this is how I thought. That I made this fantastic, awesome product. A product nobody else in the universe could have made. Now let me go and find out who will buy it. Okay. So we ask this. While what we should be asking is, the consumer has this need, what's the best product I can make for him? Guess which is a question that successful companies ask. Okay? So I'm saying, from the first question comes struggle. You made a product, now you struggle to find a consumer, you struggle to tell him your life story, you struggle to make him buy, persuade him, convince him, all that sort of stuff. But from the second comes success, because he has a need which you just satisfied. You don't have to do anything to sell it to him. Okay? So I've got some more examples. How many of you have heard of the vacuumizer? One. So I won't even look at that example. Parachute light. Many people have heard of parachute light. What does that do?
It does not keep the hair sticky.
So Marico is the company that make parachute light. Marico decided that, hey, guess what? I can make an oil that is non-sticky. What a fantastic breakthrough, technological breakthrough. So they made parachute light, which is non-sticky oil, and put it in the market and waited for everybody to come and buy it, and nobody came and bought it. Okay? Why? Two reasons. Consumer had no need for a parachute light. Second, consumer actively rejected it because they said, when I put oil on my head, I am putting oil on my head and I need to feel like I'm putting oil on my head, not like I'm putting water on my head. You get what I'm saying? You made the product because you could. There's no reason why the consumer will buy your product. Yeah? Crack cream. Everybody knows what is crack cream? You get cracked heels, you put it. Okay? Company didn't say, I can make an awesome cream. Company looked around and said, what are the problems that consumers have, housewives have? And they said, hey, look at these cracked heels, poor things, they are suffering. A definite need. It was very easy then to make a product for that need. The product flew off the shelves because there was a need. People wanted a cream for their cracked heels. So they had cracked heels.
So for parachute light, I think the brand failed or the product failed. There might be other reasons, but there was definitely a need. Everybody wants oil which is not sticky.
Who is this everybody that wants an oil that is not sticky?
Like, I have used oil. I have seen my sister.
So that's a classic example of
use oil,
everybody.
and
Me and my sister. It's not everybody. If most people, when they put oil,
yeah.
it's a, it's like when I was in school, I used to hate having a haircut. But when I went for a haircut and I had to suffer through a haircut, I wanted to make sure the haircut was so severe that everybody knew that I had a haircut. I mean, what is the point of my suffering otherwise? Right? So if I'm going to put oil on my head and it is sticky, I'm putting it because it is sticky. Because I want it to be there. I wanted to stick around in my head for a while so it will work on my head.
There is a
parachute light was just like water.
No, so that's what I'm saying. Maybe they could have also made a non-sticky oil which was not like water. Those are the details. I'm saying there was definitely a need for an oil which is not sticky.
I think there is
So that's what I'm saying. There was no need for oil that was non-sticky.
there is an association between sticky and nourishment which they missed, I think.
Whatever. So they missed all that. So sometimes we think that there's an obvious need, but sometimes that need is not so obvious. It may appear commonsensically obvious, but consumers don't think the same thing. Later on, I'll give you another example. I'll just move on quickly because I think we are running now. Okay. So there are two subtleties involved in this. And I'm saying subtlety one. We don't define a consumer. We define an aspect of a consumer. So it's not enough to say 15 to 20 women in a certain socioeconomic classification. We define aspects of consumers. So, for example, females 28 to 35 SEC A to B1 don't buy Bonvita. So you would ask, who buys Bonvita? I can either define them by demographics, or I can say motherness buys Bonvita. Does everybody hear the difference? One is the demographic definition of my consumer. One is an aspect of my consumer. That aspect of my consumer is what is actually consuming a product, not the demographic definition. Yeah. So we need to look at, when you look at consumers for your own products and your own companies, do not look for the consumer as a large 18 to 25. Look at another way of looking at the consumer. So, who buys wigs? People who have colds don't buy wigs. People who like caring buy wigs. Wigs is more about caring than about actually the cold going on. Okay. The entire wig story is all about application. Tomorrow, if wigs came out in a form that didn't require application, it wouldn't work. So we don't define a product. So subtly too, we don't define a product. We define an aspect of a product. The first one, we don't define a consumer, aspect of a consumer. I'm saying we don't even define a product, we define an aspect of a product. Example, Mangola. What is Mangola? Mango drink. In fact, an example of what we talked about just now, think parachute and all that. I'll give you an example of Mangola. This is again from our work. Many years ago, the manufacturers of Mangola said that what we are going to do is we are going to put even more mango into Mangola to raise its perceived value. Now, obviously, who doesn't want more mango? And strangely, they found that the sales didn't work. The sales that they expected didn't happen. Why? And we researched it and we found out people said, hello, you put now so much mango into the thing, I can't drink it. It's a drink after all. No, I'm not going to eat it with a spoon. But it had become so thick, I couldn't drink it. So there might have been a believed need that it's mango. More mango will sell more products. So the first problem, it became so thick I couldn't drink it. The second problem was people anyway never believed that you had actually mango in it. So by putting more mango that you didn't believe you had, you didn't really help the brand. Okay. Tata Ace. Tata Ace, for those who don't know, it's like a 3-wheeler tempo which has got 4 wheels. And when it was introduced, it completely swept the market. For one very simple perception difference, which is a 3-wheeler vehicle is an auto rickshaw. A 4-wheeler vehicle is a gadi, is a car. Suddenly, when a guy brings home a 3-wheeler tempo in his house and shows it with pride, people say, "Kya auto rickshaw lekar aaya?" When he brings a 4-wheel vehicle, is nothing much. Same vehicle, same chassis, same look, feel. Oh, you brought a car home. So you don't define a product, you define an aspect of product. Okay. I'm saying consequences, when we miss the subtleties, we have problems. Examples. Click tobacco. You have heard of click tobacco? The little tobacco pouch that you put it into your mouth so that you wouldn't smoke. Didn't work. Because people smoke for emotional reasons, for emotional inadequacies. They don't smoke for the tobacco. If you ask a smoker, what are you smoking, why are you smoking? Answer is never tobacco. Answer is all sorts of other stuff. Okay? Bilkul. Many of you may not even have heard of Bilkul because it came and went. It's a Cadbury's product. So the small little chewing gums, little soft flavored chewing gums. Didn't work. Why? Because chewing gum is a cool product. How was Bilkul sold? It was sold in little sachets in a pan shop which looked like gutka. It wasn't cool at all. Right? So when you miss the subtleties, you have disasters. So you may have great products, great product concepts that don't work. Okay. And all this happens for one critical reason alone, which is we have not understood our consumer enough. Okay? So when Ashton asked you to do an exercise about your consumer, remember this, that he is the most important thing to understand, the consumer. Okay? And back to talking about positioning. So positioning in the simplest way is defined in 4 ways. And I'm going to talk about these 4 ways. One is, you need to define what is your unique product. So ultimately we need to translate this into a positioning statement. And we do this exercise for all sorts of brands and companies. First question to answer, what is your unique product? If you don't have an answer to that, don't be in that business. What is your unique product? Second, who is your consumer? The consumer, the way we have defined it. Third, what is your product promise? What is the product promise to do unfailingly? And finally, what is the consumer delight that will happen as a result of using your product? These are the 4 thoughts that you need to put together to get your positioning statement. Let's look at each one of them very quickly. What is the unique product? What's special about you? How are you different from anyone else? Why do you exist? You need to answer that question. How are you different? Why do you exist? Not just because you thought of it. Why do you exist? Ashton, do you think we have time for individually doing this exercise? It'll take 5 minutes of distributing paper. Does everybody have some writing material? Can I just quickly ask you all to very quickly, in 1 minute, come and take a lot of paper and go away? Come, take.
Please don't use up the entire paper because I will be needing it for the second round.
Yeah, he's very worried that if you all use it up just now, we'll have nothing for his exercise, which is actually the bigger exercise. Paper or your leaf? Paper. Okay, so what I want you to do is each of these positioning elements, I want you to very quickly write down today what you are thinking about for your brand. And later on, we will do the same exercise that after all this gyan that we are throwing your way, how has your thinking changed? Okay? So, 10 seconds to write down what you think is your unique product. 10 seconds only. As entrepreneur, the answer should be bubbling into you. I mean, why did you otherwise make it? Okay? 10 seconds up.
Yeah.
What is your unique product? Consumer. Let me not read this. Write down who do you think is your consumer? 10 seconds. Okay, so let's talk about the consumer. Now, whatever you've written, you've written. You don't have to give it in, write your name on top, nothing. I won't give you a star or something. Just keep it. Okay, consumer. So let's, in the positioning thought, the critical question is who is your consumer? The consumer of your product thought. You notice I keep on saying product thought, not product thought. Because when people think about your product, there is no product that they are thinking about. There is a thought of the product that they are thinking about. So define your consumer uniquely, demographically, psychographically, behaviorally, emotionally, in as many different ways as you can define your consumer, and narrow down. Okay? Define every facet of your consumer. Most important, like my entire presentation, everyone is the wrong answer. Okay? No matter what your product is, if you were selling air, I would say everyone is the wrong answer. Okay? So everyone is not the answer. Define your consumer very carefully, emotionally, psychographically, behaviorally, attitudinally, demographically. And the purpose of doing it is to narrow down your definition till you get a very tight, narrow band, which you can then look at and say, that is my consumer. The broader your definition, the less your chance of success. The narrower your definition, the greater your chance of success. Yeah? Promise.
Sir, can I ask who is the consumer for an iPhone?
Why don't you do that as an exercise?
So like the reason I asked was that sometimes for some consumer oriented products, the consumer band is just too big. Like,
No, it's not. You think the iPhone consumer band is too big?
yeah, I do.
4.5 people buy iPhones. That's it.
It's too
Compared to the millions who buy Nokias and Blackberries and all that. Far fewer people buy iPhones than anything else, right? Why? So
Very few people in India buy iPhones. They all buy Android.
Whatever. That's because you're knowledgeable and you can even say words like Android. For most consumers, there is Nokia, Blackberry. Okay. But you think about your question and think about the answer. That how can I define an iPhone consumer? Can you define him demographically? Can you define him by male, female, age, economic classification? Probably not. You can define a Nokia user by that far more easily. But that's why Nokia costs 5,000 and iPhone costs 50,000. Okay, at 50,000 they will still find buyers because they've defined it so tightly and so narrowly and made a product only for them that they will obviously buy it. Okay. What was the next thought? I said promise. What will the product deliver unfailingly? In your case, 10 seconds. What is the product promise? What will my product deliver unfailingly? No matter what happens, this it will deliver.
In case of service, what would the promise be?
Think about it now. Remember, service is a product. Everything is a product. And when you layer the product with a consumer and a perception and an experience, it becomes a brand. A service is no different from a water pump. Okay, 8, 9, 10. That's the promise. What is the fourth thing I had said? Consumer delight. So I'll just define it and then you write it down. Okay. How will using this brand change his life? Because if it doesn't, there's no reason to exist. Why will he continue using this product? Why will he look forward to using it? Why will he not? Why will he wait in a line? iPhone people, 7 million people who waited at 4 o'clock in the morning, not only to buy an iPhone, to buy a white iPhone. How daft is that? And that was in winter, I think. What is that consumer delight? How by using your product will the consumer be delighted? Okay? Wonderful. 10 seconds up. So I'm saying getting all these thoughts together into a consistent whole will give you the position for your product. When you get all these 4 together, you will be able to write down a sentence which includes all 4. That will be your positioning statement. And if you really done it well, then you're really, really fortunate because most people don't write it. Most large companies don't do it. They don't get it right. So think about this very carefully and very deeply. So why is positioning important? Without well-defined positioning, your brand will eventually fail. And I'm saying there are no exceptions to this. If your positioning is not uniquely defined, carefully defined, your brand will fail. Finished. It may succeed for all sorts of strange reasons, but your brand will have failed. I'm saying without a well-defined position, your brand will eventually and more often quite immediately lose to competition, become irrelevant, lose salience in its category, become just one more product, undifferentiated, unloved, unwanted. Because you just made a product.
What is the meaning of salience?
Limca lost salience in the soft drinks category. It was no longer a soft drink. Yeah. So I'm saying unpositioned brands may continue to sell. There are so many brands in the world, thousands of them that continue to sell, right? But do you ever feel that I wake up in the morning and say, today I will go and buy that? You'll never feel that for an unpositioned brand. So unpositioned brands may continue to sell, but on non-ownable things like price and distribution. You can keep on lowering the price, product will sell. You can keep on having mass distribution, product will sell. But you can't own price, you can't own distribution. You can own position. Yeah.
Once I decide the positioning of the product, can I change that positioning later, eventually during the course of time?
Very good question. Very good question. Theoretically, positioning is forever. However, we said a number of things. We said consumers change. Consumer needs change. As those change, your positioning may need to change. But the less you change your positioning, the better. Because that's what your brand gets identified with. That's what your brand's image over a period of time becomes. We haven't talked about brand image or brand character, brand personality. Those are other separate things. But that's what it becomes over a period of time. So you may be forced to change your positioning because your environment changed, because your consumer changed. Okay? So unpositioned brand will continue to sell, but not owning the things. So, and I'm saying, what is positioning not? What is positioning not? Positioning is not an advertising line. Very important. Nike's just do it is not Nike's positioning. It's just an advertising line. The advertising one creative interpretation of a position. That's all. Ad lines change, positioning is forever. Yeah. What is good positioning? Sharply defines the relationship between the consumer and her brand. Why have I underlined that her? The strong sense of association, strong sense of belongingness, which gives a brand its strength. A mera brand. You know, we do exercises like we do in our research, we do projective techniques like obituary writing. That if this brand were to die tomorrow, what would happen? So one of the things that we provoke consumers about big brands that they know, what happens if this brand dies? Answers sometimes are, no problem, we use another one. Or answers are, impossible, how can this brand die? No, but suppose the company closes down, we will take a morcha, we'll go to the factory and we can tell them they will not be able to close down. Now that's the example of a strength of a brand. Where my association with the brand is so strong that I cannot even imagine that brand not being there. And those are powerful brands. Those are brands that have intrinsic power in them. Yeah? Those are the holy grail of branding. That's why the underlining of the word her. Good positioning occupies a well-defined position in her mental space. That's why it's called positioning. It's called positioning because it occupies a certain space in her mind, in a particular mental box. Has strong inclusion ability for future products and extensions. Nike, strong inclusion ability. Titan, if Titan positioned itself as a watchmaking company, it could not launch sunglasses. But if Titan positioned itself as an accessory, a fashion statement, it can launch sunglasses, it can launch swimwear, it can launch shoes, it can launch anything in the area of accessories and personal enhancement. That's the power. Okay? That's what we mean by inclusion ability for future products and extension. And good positioning is not limiting. A good position will not limit you in the future. It will allow you to grow. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of inclusion, so positioning and inclusion. I'll give you two